Welcome back to a brand new coffee tech break with Jan. Good to see you back on my channel again. I think I got another great video for you lined up today because I want to take you through as you can see, a brand new version of the Studio X family 4.3.2. And it is a sort of consolidated version because we already had 4.3, we had 4.3.1, and now we got 4.3 versions. I want to take a step back and take you through all the versions that we went through. And I will take you to the latest of Teams, the latest of Zoom, etc. That will all be handled in this video. Now, what you probably have seen is after the summer, also a brand new generation has been announced of the Studio X family. As you know, Poly was one of the first in the market with the Studio X family. And now, because it's been very successful in the market, and now they're bringing out second generation of devices with a lot of great new features coming out, where I'm already getting excited for next year to create videos on that. Now, what is also important is not only the second gen X family, but also the V family. And the V family is just dedicated a USB video bar, but certified for Microsoft Teams, for Zoom, etc. So just be aware, the V family. Now, the last one we have is the G family, and that is the G7500, the G62, etc. Just purely for your modular rooms to get started with, and you build that out with IP mics, cameras, etc. But during the video, I will make sure that you have like a sort of branding if I'm talking about second gen device, because there are some certain features which are probably only for the second gen, that I will use a sort of second gen logo on the devices, so you are aware that it is a second gen I'm talking about. So I prepared the presentation as usual, and of course also some hands-on because I like to break out and show you some of those things where I'm running into, or some features, where can you set them, etc. And so I'll walk you through a presentation and regular will jump out. Now, as usual, I'm gonna jump in my computer now and walk you to the great new version 4.3.2. All right. Let's get started with the presentation, version 4.3.2. As a baseline, I always have as a sort of red line walking you through all those different applications, but also in the device itself. There's been some optimization for the different features and functions, but as everybody knows, I'm always taking you through that. First off, we always ask the different video providers if there are any updates on their applications, and so we can embed them as much as possible. Now, if there are any updates after we bring out the software, don't worry, you can always push out newer application through Teams Admin Center or through Zoom Device Management, so that is always possible to push it out. But this is one of my red lines throughout this presentation, how you can update that. First, what is also important is we have the X family, we have the G family, we have also now the X family, the second gen. G family is the G7500 and the G62. As I'm talking about specifically about G family, you're able to identify these two devices. The Studio X are the X50, the X30, and the X70. These devices, but we also have the newer generation, which I will mention as a sort of second gen device, but I will show you that a bit later. The other ones which was announced was the Studio V family. So we already had the V52, but we will get the V72 and the V32. So this is a really interesting one. So these devices don't have any codec inside there, so you always need a separate codec to combine that, or you can combine it with BYOD, so using just on a laptop and share the camera, speaker and mic from the device, You can use any video application from your own device. This is a very interesting one. Well, why the V family? Well, it has it inherits all the premium features, like tracking functions, NoiseBlockAI functions, anything that you know from the Studio X family will be part of the V family, but no applications running on that device. So that is interesting if your company needs to have codec based on Windows, for example, and you don't want to base it on Android, then the V family combined it with a Windows MTR, with a Windows Zoom Room. I think that is a really interesting one, or even BYOD. And for some rooms, you got maybe multiple people coming in, quickly going in and out. Maybe you prefer for BYOD, then also the V family is an interesting one. Now, I will do some separate videos on that, on the specific features and functions and to compare them. So I don't want to dive too deep into that, but just be aware, like during this whole presentation, I will take you through different versions, talk about the V, the X, the second gen, so that will be all part of that. How do I make you aware that I talk about the second gen is I put a sticker on those devices which tells you second gen, because there are some features specifically now coming to the second gen. And into the next year with multi-director AI and combined with the Studio E360, that center of table camera, these are all part of the second gen devices. So I'm trying to distinguish the two, so you got a good overview of that. The first thing, which is always part of the startup of my presentation, is the upgrade and downgrade, because I always get a lot of questions about that. How do we get from version X to version I? And what are the different ways to do that? This is why it's always part of my presentation. But be aware, I've done it through all my PolyOS updates. So if you need to dive deeper, you can always jump to one of my other videos where I also take you extensively to the process how to upgrade and downgrade. Now, what are the ways to upgrade? Well, first one is just using the web interface of the devices itself. So all the devices has a local web interface, also the TC8 and TC10, and you have a way there to upgrade those devices. So if you are demonstration or proof of concept, you quickly need to upgrade, jump into the web interface. Password is the last 6 digits of the serial number, and the username is admin. You can jump in and you can always force under device management an upgrade. Just to be aware of it. I use this daily during my field tests, during demonstrations, etc. It is really powerful to be able to upgrade the device quickly. Now, be aware that automatic updates, when you are factory resetting, for example, the automatic updates is on. So just to make sure that your device stays up to date, because otherwise it could get too far behind in software versions. So I see that sometimes in the field, that devices are running too far out, and then you're running out of support, you're running out of interoperability with a Microsoft or a Zoom platform. So make sure if you turn auto updates off, that you regularly do a check to make sure you are upgrading your devices. The next one is using USB stick. So if you're going on a location, you don't have your 5G router in your car like me, then you can also bring your USB stick with the version, download that from home, make sure you got a fast USB stick, and then you can just put the stick into the device. It will automatically detect the update, and you're able to upgrade it. You can download the software, and I've done some videos on that on PolyLens. I will make sure I put a link there, so if you need a reference, I will show you there where you can find the download. You download the software. It is packed, so you need to unpack it on the root of the stick, and then you put it in the device and it will be able to find it. Now, what is important, because I've seen this a couple of times in the field, is you need to format it FAT32. There is a sort of FAT extended if you go to the default route of format the stick or using Windows 11, it will by default using a sort of FAT extended. That is not recognized by the device. You need to format really based on FAT 4.32. And that is a PowerShell command. So just be aware of that. If you Google on this, you will find a lot of blogs on people formatted on the FAT32. And then if you put it in the device, it will directly recognize it that you want to upgrade, and you can do that then without internet connectivity. One of my favorites, PolyLens. This is a really nice one because here you can go up in version, but also down in version. Not too far down, of course. Don't go from version 4 to version 3, because that means a downgrade in Android version, and that doesn't go very well. So make sure you stay within the number you have. So version 4, you can easily switch between those different versions if needed. So if you run into something in your specific environment, you can always switch here between the different versions. This is what I really like from PolyLens. You got full control. You can reboot the Studio X or reboot specific to touch panel. I think this is really, really powerful. Now, the other one is using Microsoft Teams Admin Center. Of course, you will also find there the upgrade software. It will upgrade first to Studio X, and Teams Admin Center also has now the intelligence to make sure that you upgrade your TC8 or TC10, so that it all stays in line. Similar for Zoom device management, so you can push out specific apps or through major versions, so you can use those platforms to make sure that your devices are up to date. Now let me take you through an overview, because I'm always getting asked, like, Jan, what is the build version, which like E70 or E60 version is included. So with 4.3.2, for example, included with the E70, we included the 1.10.2. That is the latest version as of 4.3.2. With the E60, we've included the 1047. And I will show you in this video also that you can now upgrade if you hook up your E60 or your E70 to your G7500, G62 or to a Studio X device. You can upgrade also these cameras now. And so really, really powerful to keep everything up to date. Now here we got specifically the builds. So 4.3.2 with the specific build. And also be aware that on the TC8 and TC10, you're running the TCOS, so the Touch Controller Operating System. Be aware of that. And that is now on 6.3.2 with the specific build. Now, at some points, the versions will probably be aligned there, but this is why I always provide an overview of what is included with a specific software build. So you can create a snapshot here. And then you can quickly review this if you go on site with the customer. Now, modular room switch, be aware this will be more and more important. So we got the Netgear switch here, which is able to hook up different cameras, microphones, etc. So you will be able to combine this with, for example, your G62. Connect your LLM port to this device, and then you're able to use it. Now, we got a specific configuration for your modular room switch here. So I'm gonna make sure that in one of the upcoming videos, I will do a configuration of that switch. I already did a specific community tag. So there's already some information there on the community where I wrote a small blog on that. The specific configuration, specific software version you run on the Netgear switch, and then you're able to use that with the, for example, the G62 and combine it with the different IP devices. All right, here it comes. This is an important note on the second gen device. And so we have a version after 4.3.2, which will probably be version 4.4. Now, what is important, the brand new one, the X72, which is now shipped to customers, will come with a 4.2.5. Now, be aware that the version 4.3 we have now is not supported on the X72. So stay on the 4.2.5. Don't upgrade to that version. It will probably work, but it's not tested, so it's not supported. You will bring your X72 directly to 4.4. And it could be when it's shipped to you that you already identified the 4.4 release. So you can bring it to that version. So just something to be aware of, that this is specifically for the second gen devices. Now, the second option, if you're already on 4.1, pretty good, well, then you got a green light to go directly to 4.3.2. This is a very good base version. What will happen is also your factory image will get to 4.3.2. So in case you reset the device with the pin, it will load that factory version back on the device. So you should always be able to get it up and running. But I will also talk about that a little bit later, but you're always able to get the devices up and running if something failed. Now, you can go even up and down, because with this version 4.3 you can go back to 4.1 if needed, if there is something specific which you wanted to test out or you run into, you can always switch between versions. Devices are already on Android 10, it will stay the same, and the TC8 and TC10 will also stay at Android 11. All right, what happened with those brand new releases? And this is, I think, always an exciting time for me, because I can talk about the brand new features which are available. So with that new version, we have now a brand new out-of-box experience. So it's very easy to install the devices. And again, I talked this also through in one of my previous videos. But I think what is an important one is with every new release, it's getting updated with some new features and functions. So first off, when you start up the device, you pair it up with a TC8 or TC10, you will get the language setting. But you can also set dark mode if needed, and then you go to the next one. The next one, especially for the TC10, you can choose to be a controller or you can choose to be a scheduling panel. And so the TC10 works also at the front of the entrance. And what you've also seen is you can use it also in combination with an MTR Windows now, the G9 Plus kit. And so the TC10 has now like 3 functions available where you can use it. Okay, the next step, if you then choose it to be as a room controller, it will like search for your panel. This was not available in the previous version, but now you should be able to see a list here of TC8 or TC10 panels, and then you should be able to pair it. So these are things which are getting optimized with every new version. And the next one is you choose your provider. So in theory, you don't need a keyboard and a mouse anymore. And so in the past, you had to get on the device, get the IP address, and but that is not needed. If you are on version 4.x, you will get now this experience after a factory reset. So I think a really nice one. And yeah, I will keep on updating this as soon as something new happened with the out-of-box experience. I will make sure that I will put that in my video. Now, how does this look like in the menu? So for example, you got here scheduling panel, the wall, you got TC10 here, the table. At the end, when you run through it, you will see also the IP address here on the screen. So in case you want to connect to the device itself, that is possible, because then you can fine tune some things in there and configure some specific settings. That is of course a possibility. You will see the serial number. So that is to make sure that you can grab those last 6 digits to able to log into the web interface there, but it's optionally. You don't need to do it. It will ask you to connect controller, and then you can choose the provider. Now, if you choose then to be Teams, what you will get is you will be brought to the device login. And probably a lot of people know that. You grab your laptop. Doesn't have to be here in the room. You can even have somebody who mentioning the device login, the code, and then you log in the device. I think a really nice one. And again, it will probably be optimized with every new release, but it's going in a very good direction to be able to roll out massively on a very easy way. Now, similar for Zoom. So you got here your scheduling panel on the wall, and Zoom is the same TC10, and so you can use that also with Zoom or with Teams as scheduling panel. Same thing, so we see the IP address, so you can do and go in the web interface and make some changes on the device. Now, TC10, you choose your provider. Let's say it's gotta be a Zoom this way, then you get your activation code. You put it in the Zoom device management portal, and here you go. You got your device up and running. Really, really nice. And this is much appreciated. I know, because I got my tentacles in the field, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on this, especially when you're brought to the new version, you do that factory reset, then you immediately will experience this brand new out-of-box experience. More new features. So this is always my favorite part of the video, to bring that out. And you see the stickers now all over it. This is a second gen feature. So just to be aware of that. You can use, in combination with Zoom, not with Teams, this is a combination with Zoom, you can use a third display. Really, really nice. So part of X72, X52, the G62, you will have the option to get 3 screens, and that will be done by a small adapter from Pluggable. And I will make sure in the description, as usual, to put all that information so you have that available. But again, it's only possible with the second generation of the Studio X. Second generation is also, for example, the G62. Now, how do you connect that? Well, the X72 and the X52, they have a USB port. So you connect that from the Pluggable, you connect that in the USB port, it will automatically be recognized. The same with the G62. So you put here in the adapter, and it will give you that additional HDMI output for a third screen. Really nice. So besides the dual screen you have now this additional screen, which you can configure in the Zoom device management as a content screen or as a people screen. Or all right, let's look at the wiring, because this is always an interesting one. For example, I got here the G62. I got 3 screens, and probably another layout which you would see a lot, but just to give you an idea how that looks like. So we got the G62, and how is that all connected? Well, we plug in that USB adapter to HDMI, and then you suddenly got here your third screen. Just pretty straightforward. HDMI to screen 1, HDMI 2 to screen 2, and then your third one using the adapter. Pretty straightforward. The next one, and this is, I think, a more used one, because here you got an extra screen. Let's say you got a big room, you want to add an extra screen for a presentation. I think this is a nice one, and I'm using this time X52, but it can also be, of course, an X72. How is that all connected? Again, we got here screen 1, screen 2. And then we use the pluggable adapter through USB and get that additional third screen, and we connect that here to that screen. And then, of course, you go into device management portal and you can configure what you wanted it to be. But this is, I think, a use case which we'll probably see more often. But again, this is only available when you put the devices into native Zoom. The next one is a reference to the integrator guide, because I know a lot of people always ask me, Jan, where can I find all the cabling guides and what has been tested, etc. So there is an integrator reference guide, and again, I will make sure I will put this information in the comments. There is an integrator reference guide where you can find all this type of information, and here you nicely see the cabling. What is also a nice one is you see here, and be aware it is in Zoom mode, you got also the E70 connected here up to that Netgear AV switch. Really nice, including the microphones, and that is all up to connected to the LLM port, which is a separate port, and yeah, we call it LLM, but in the documentation you will also see that and read that as Studio Net, as it is a sort of local network specifically for IP devices. There's no internet connectivity on that device. It's really a local network just for your devices to connect there, no DHCP, etc. So really powerful. You can connect all your devices here to the Netgear switch, which has that predefined configuration and software version, and you connect that to that LLM port, and then you're able to hook up all your devices. Really nice. Of course, your TC10 and your codec are on the other end connected to corporate network to get to internet, connect to the Zoom or to connect to Teams. All right, what more is happening? So just to give you an idea about the naming. So what happened, we have now the sound reflection reduction, which was part of that NoiseBlockAI. That's one of the options. It has been renamed now to NoiseBlockAI version 2. Doing exactly the same, but of course more optimized. So with every version, this is getting optimized in the device set. So that is, I think, a really nice one. So if you have those challenging rooms with high ceilings, with a lot of gloss, like really a lot of echo, I would really recommend to try that out at the NoiseBlockAI version 2. How does this look like? Well, you see that right here. The first one is the NoiseBlockAI. So that is purely the canceling, for example, when you clap. And we have that in all our devices. For example, I can even clap here. As you see, there's nothing coming through from my clapping. And so that is really a NoiseBlockAI feature. Now, with NoiseBlockAI V2, you're canceling the echoes out and that noise. So it combines the two. So just be aware of that. It includes that sound reflection reduction. As I said, I always just try to recommend to try it out if you got this challenging rooms. So NoiseBlockAI version 2, the echo cancelling function, works also with the extension mic. It works where you use a trio, because you could have a trio C60 at the table, so you can combine it with that. It works with external DSPs. So if you connect, for example, the G62 or G7500 to an external DSP, you're also able to combine that echo techniques. And the last one, if you're using the audio analog in, same thing. You're able to use the same functions with the NoiseBlockAI V2. So just be aware of that. Just try it out and see, if it's improving the experience in the room. All right, let me show you quickly where can you find the NoiseBlockAI V2, so you got an idea where you can tweak that. All right, here we are in the Studio X web interface. See this as connecting to the underlying operating system, where you can configure and tweak all the settings of the device. Similar, and you can do the same thing centrally from PolyLens. But if you need to do something quickly, you can always go into the web interface specifically. Now, for software updates, you can go to General Settings, you can go to Device Management. If there is an update, you're always able to find it right here. It could be if the device is in Zoom or in Microsoft Teams, that you need to specifically select here Polycom support site. And then you force it to update directly from Polycom. And after that, of course, you can put it back to Microsoft Teams, but then you will have that latest version. If it's maybe not available from the team side or from the Zoom side, and you're always able to force it to make sure that you're able to use it with your specific version and to test it out. Same for the devices which are connected. As soon as they are paired with your Studio X, it will automatically prompt you for those new version, and you can upgrade those accessoires. Now, specifically on the audio, which I was talking about, here you will find the NoiseBlockAI options. So you can turn it off. You can turn on NoiseBlockAI, which is just the filtering, like using clapping or a coffee machine or anything that's in the room. And we got now NoiseBlockAI version 2, which is that including that sound reflex reduction. So you can select that right here to be able to use it. And what I usually always do, just review your settings. For example, the bass, if you got an X72 or X52, you can even add some more bass power to it. So I usually set that to +2. And some other settings you can do. You can tweak the microphone a little bit if you need some more microphone power, but usually it's not needed. You can leave that to 0, and that should be sufficient. The device is already tweaked to be able to use them in your specific environment. All right, let's get to the next feature, brand new in 4.3.2. Because, as I said, a lot of things happened. So now you can use for example, the E60 camera. That was already possible with the E70, but you can now use your E60 cameras if you got an X30, X50 or X70, and also of course the newer generation, but with all those devices you can get now the E60 as an additional camera. You're able to select it. Be aware that in Teams you need a pro license, because otherwise you cannot select other cameras. And on the zoom side you can. You can even use multiple cameras if you put it to native zoom. So this is possible now. You connect that through USB to your bar, and then you're directly able to use those devices. Now, how does this look like in your meeting room? And this is just an example to give you an impression. For example, you got there a whiteboard where a person is trying to present something or draw something. Now, the E60, similar as the E70, supports a gyro. So if you put it upside down against the ceiling, so there is a ceiling bracket available, it will automatically turn the image. And I did like a short video on that, so I will make sure we'll put a link there. And then you're able to use it. It will turn the image, and then you're able to switch to that other camera. And again, this can be X70, X50, X52, X72. It doesn't matter. It will support the E60 as an additional camera. A bit deeper on the E60 features, because I think it's a great pan-tilt zoom, an optical pan-tilt zoom camera. So you can opposite mount this against the ceiling. So there is a ceiling mount available. So there's a gyro in there. So the image is also automatically rotated. Now, as you've done that, what you need to do is you need to configure the Studio X, which I will show you a bit later, the stage frame and the presenter frame. And so you can configure that with the AI camera, which is underneath the E60. It will show you that view, and you can configure that part. So if nobody is presenting it will show you that view. See it as a sort of home preset. Now, as soon as somebody enters that sort of presenter frame, it will start following that user. But I will show you a bit later where you can do that and how that looks like. Now, and the final option where you can use the E60 is just in the room. At the front of the room, top of the screen, you put it to group framing, and it will automatically making sure that everybody is visible. As I said, it's an optical camera, so you got really a crystal clear image of that meeting room. And of course, you can use presets if you want to turn off the group frame and use preset or a fixed frame. And there are some of those options possible. Now, looking specifically on the Studio X, so where do you configure that? So if you go into the web interface of Studio X, of the G family, you will find there option frame group. But also there's now a new option, and that is frame presenter. So if you put it into frame presenter, you will get a new option, and that is configure. If you click on configure, you will get a shot of the camera, the AI camera, underneath of that room. And here you go. Now you can configure, as they call it, the stage frame. That's the blue, as you can see right here. So you can configure that anyhow you want that. And you can configure the presenter tracking zone. So that is now this specific area. If more people are going into this presenter tracking zone, then it will fall back to group framing. Because then it assumes that multiple presenters are there, and it will try to make sure that everybody is visible who is walking in that area. So just good to know how the camera behaves in these environments. But we have now this configuration available out of the box with this latest version on the Studio X and the G family. Let me show you where you can find this tracking configuration on the Studio X web interface. So we are here back in the web interface, and this is, by the way, an X30. So it can be X30, X50, but also the newer generation. It doesn't matter. All those devices through USB support this E60 as an additional camera. Now, you need to go here to video inputs, and there you will find that I've connected here my E60. So you can configure it and optimize it for sharpness or motion. You can configure backlight compensation or white balance of the camera. And here you got also some specifics. So you can tweak it really for your own specific environment. Now, as a tracking option, what you see now is you have a new option available, Frame Presenter. So if I put it in that mode, then we need to save it, of course. Go right here. Then we have the option now, Configure. The tracking enable means that the tracking is always enabled as soon as you use the camera, but you can also turn it off. But usually you want to enable it when you select it. Now we go to Configure. It will open up a second field, as you see right here, and we have now the red area, which is your presenter tracking zone, and there's another one, the blue one, which you see right here, which is your stage frame. So here you can specifically configure what you want to see on your camera and what needs to be your tracking presenter area. And after that, you click on Save, and that saves it to the camera. Even after a reboot, this will make sure that it is saved. So really easy. It's all built now into the latest version of the Studio X and the G family. All right, the next part, and don't forget, as I'm doing, to take some of the coffee in between. There's a lot of exciting things. Now, this part is specifically on demystifying multiple cameras, because I'm getting a lot of questions about that. Jan, how many cameras can connect over USB? Where can I control the cameras? In Zoom, how many cameras? So there's different platforms, different features and functions, and different connectors. Because you can connect cameras over USB. This is with most of the cameras available. You can use some of the extenders from Icon Ranger, from Sound Control. It's all nicely documented in the release notes. But you also have now cameras more and more available over IP. But that also has a sort of limitation with the different video providers. So I'm trying to give you some heads up here, and this will change throughout the versions coming up. I will keep you updated with this, because more and more cameras will be supported in the upcoming versions. Now we got quite a range of cameras, but what is important, you don't mix. You go to IP, you go all the way over IP. If you're going to use USB, you got to be all on USB. There's no way that applications will recognize where you're going to switch between USB and IP. And so that is, I think, a really, really important one. If you're going to connect those cameras, so not standalone, but if you're going to connect those cameras to the Studio X family, the end goal is that you will have full control over the settings on those devices. Similar when you connect it to the codecs, the Teams Room windows, etc. You should be able to control those devices, and you don't need a remote control. But still, if you have it standalone, you could use the E60 standalone, or in a BYOD scenario, then you're always able to use the remote control to turn on or turn off the tracking. First off, let me demystify USB camera support. So you got an idea when you're using, for example, the G62 in combination with Microsoft Teams, how many cameras are supported. Now, first off, because the G62 has 2 USB ports also, you got a maximum of 2. But the maximum of 2 is also supported the maximum by Microsoft Teams. In Teams, you also need a Pro license, which will give you the option to switch between cameras. So it's not an automatic way. You really manually need to switch in Microsoft Teams. But again, you need a Pro license. Now, there's also a maximum of 2 USB-A ports. So it is a limitation in Teams, but also the G62 has a maximum of 2 ports. Now, there are some additional hubs under testing, because that will extend the number of USB ports on the G62, and probably as soon as that is available, always recommend to check the release notes, because then they will be put into there. This is the maximum for Teams. For Zoom, same thing, you can add 2 cameras, maximum of 2, to the G62. But in Zoom, it's a bit nicer because there you can enable multiple cameras at the same time. So if you put your device, and again, that can be X30, X50, the X52, X72, one of those devices, you can connect your cameras to that, and you were able to use them all. Same in poly mode, but in poly mode you will also manually switch it. There's no like automatic way to get all the devices in at the same time. Now this is all based on the G62. Now if we then look at the G7500, we again have a maximum of 2, although we have 3 USB ports, and I know you can connect more cameras. I've tested it, but it's not officially supported there. So a maximum of 2 is officially supported by Microsoft Teams. It's also manually switching. Again, you need a Pro license. Same thing on Zoom. You can connect a maximum of 2 USB cameras, and here will probably also work if you connect more cameras, but this is officially supported, and the same thing in poly mode. You will be manually switching. If you then need to extend, so as well as the icon rangers or from sound control, there are extenders available for those cameras. So if you need to go further out into those rooms, you can convert USB to CAT cable, and the other end you can bring back CAT to USB, and so you can easily extend those devices. Now, one last item is don't mix USB cameras with IP cameras, because that could confuse the application, the video application, which you're running on the device. Now, a pointer to the integrator reference guide specific for the G62, and I will make sure that I will put everything in the comments. You got a nice overview there of the devices, and this time you got the E60 connected, which is now connected over USB, and soon will also be connected over IP. We got the additional Netgear switch because we want to connect 2 table microphones. There's also power coming from the Netgear switch. You connect 1 port to the LLM, and this is all available again in that integrator reference guide, which I will share underneath in the comments, and is available from docs.poly.com. Now, demystifying IP camera support. This is a really interesting one and also a moving target. So as I told you earlier, the G62 has 1 LM port for Studio Net, as we call it in the documentation, and the G7500 has 3 LLM ports, but you cannot extend that through a Netgear switch. You have a maximum really of 3 LLM ports. Now, the whole work of those IP cameras also depend on the application running on the Studio X and on the G family. Just be aware of that. And now the E70 is already available over IPM, and the E60 is coming soon. Now, what is also important, what I'm mentioning also earlier, is that the LLM port of the G62 doesn't supply power, so you need to add an injector if you use it with 1 additional camera over IP. Of course, that is possible, but then you need to use an injector, and the G7500 has power on those ports, so you should be able to power up devices directly connected to that. Because with the G62, we're going much further in modular rooms, so this is why you need to add a Netgear switch. We got 8 or 9 additional ports to do all kinds of things with IP mics, with additional cameras, etc. So it's just much more modular for the future. Now, specifically on the G62, so if you're going IP, again, you have only 1 port. There's no power in there, so you need to add a small Netgear switch, or you add the larger one, and where you're able to add additional IP cameras and mics. But again, the usage depends on the video application running on the Studio X or G family, so just be aware of that. Now, also here I created a table. So this is based on IP connected cameras. So first we start with the G62. Again, I'm mentioning here, this will require an LLM switch. If you connect only one, you need to have an injector. You can have one camera, but yeah, in practical, you will probably have more cameras connected and more IP table or ceiling mics. Now, in this case, when you're going IP, as you see right here, you have a maximum of one in Microsoft Teams. You have a maximum of one today IP camera. And you can connect whether 3 ceiling mics or 3 table mics with a maximum of 3. And that all connects through that switch. In Zoom, it's a bit more flexible, or you can connect up to 3 cameras over IP. This is the design which I also showed you earlier. And same, a maximum of 3 ceiling mics, a maximum of 3 table mics. And so you can really extend in that meeting room. And similar as in the poly mode, you can also connect 3 cameras, but be aware in poly mode you manually switch. And in Zoom mode, you can use the 3 cameras at the same time. Bring them all in the meeting, and then an end user in a Zoom client can select a specific video feed that they want. Now, with the G6500, there's no Netgear support. There's no Netgear support, so you really connect them directly up to the LLN port of the G6500. So here you have the same thing. You got a maximum of 1 IP camera supported in Teams with the G6500 and a maximum of 2 ceiling or table mics. And this will also are the ports that are available on the device. Same in Zoom, you connect 1 IP camera directly to the LLM port. It will also power the device in this case, including the microphones, and this will end up all the ports available. As I said, you only have 3 here. So if you want to go more, make sure you grab the G62. Well, I guess for any new room, I would say just grab the G62 because this will give you much more flexibility moving into that modular room. So same as in poly mode, you're able to connect 1 camera over IP and you're able to use 2 ceiling mics or 2 table mics to use that in the room, and you connect them up to that LLN port of the G7500. So this is, I think, a really important one. And again, this is a moving target as well as USB connected devices, as well as IP connected devices that will be more moving into the future. And probably if you connect more, it could work, but again, not officially supported yet with the different video providers. This is what is supported at the moment with version 4.3.2. Now again, a reference to the integrator guide. So here you see that nice design, 1 camera, E70 camera connected to the Netgear switch, 2 microphones connected up to that LLM port, and the other a LAN port connected to the internet. Same for your TC10, which also connects directly to the internet to get to the Teams environment or the Zoom environment. And that is all available in the integrator reference guide, one where also get questions about is using IP cameras in combination with third-party DSPs like Shure, QC, Biamp. Well, it's the same story concerning cameras. So we got 1 LLM port on the G62. Now you connect one of those third-party DSPs over USB to the USB port of the G62, you turn on USB audio and that will delegate the full function to those third-party DSPs. And again, you will have an additional 1 camera connected. Same thing, if you are in the Zoom mode, you can connect up to 3 cameras all over the IP. And you're going to use the Netgear switch, of course, to combine it with those 3 cameras. Then you connect the USB port, same also to USB-A port of the G62 with poly mode, same thing, the H323 SIP mode. You can also connect 3 cameras, you switch it manually. In Zoom, you can have all the video streams available at the same time. Now, G7500, same story. You got the maximum of the ports of the LLM ports. There's no Netgear switch support with the G7500. Maximum of 1 camera. Connect the USB port to the USB port of the G7500. you turn on the USB audio and that will delegate the DSP function to one of those DSP providers. Same in Zoom, you can connect the cameras, the DSP, you're able to use it one camera and one camera in the poly mode. So this should give you at least an indication how many cameras, what is supported, etc. But there is some flexibility, of course, so you can try out more cameras, etc. But that is something on your own. I will keep you up to date, especially what is supported. And again, don't mix USB connected cameras and IP connected cameras. I just want to tell you enough because that is not supported by the applications like Teams or Zoom and by all those applications, because then it could confuse the application to identify the camera. So this is why you use it over IP or you're going to use it over USB. Alright, how are the different devices connected and how can you identify how they are connected? Well, if you look in the Studio X in the web interface under the connected devices, you're for example able to see that the IP table microphone is connected here over local net. This is Studio Net, how we call it, so connected to the LLN port. The TC10 is connected over network. And here you see the network logo. And here the E70 is now connected over USB. So you can really identify very quickly how the devices are connected. Now, what is important, if you want to pair the E70 instead of using it over USB, you want to use it over IP, you're able to see as soon as you connect to that LLM port using Netgear switch with G62 or directly on the G7500, you get this option under the devices available on the network. Really nice. So you click on pair and this will pair the device over the network. The E70 will reboot. And then in the next phase, what you will see is that the E70 and soon also the E60, it will get exact the same logo as you see right here. Now, as usual, let me show you how this looks like in the Studio X web interface. So here we are back in the web interface of the Studio X. So how can you pair the E60 or the E70 with the device over the network? So instead of using this over USB, use it over IP. Well, you need to go to General Settings. You go here to Device Management. Then you go all the way down under Device Management, and here you go. It discovered an E70 over the network. And again, in the next version, you will also have this available for the E60. So you will see that it's now discovered. So the only thing you need to do, you click on Pair, and click on Pair. So what will happen now? The device will be paired and the camera will reboot. And soon what you will see is that it will connect, instead of connecting over USB, it will connect over IP. So as you can see, after reboot, the E70 is now connected over IP to local net. Really nice. You can unplug now the USB cable and you can connect up to 100 meters if you want to add the camera to the G7500 or with the Netgear switch or a combination with an injector directly on the G62, and you got that all available. Really, really nice one. It is really easy to do. You pair it similar as with the microphone or as with the touch panels. Just search it on that local net, you just pair it and you're able to hook it up. And it also, of course, will get software updates and anything that is needed. All right, back to the presentation. So hopefully that gave you a quick overview of how you can pair the E70 and soon also the E60 to your devices.